Welcome, everyone. Let's begin our lesson for today by going over the learning goals and success criteria. First, what are we learning? We're learning how to convert a frequency table into a histogram. How are we learning it? Through the Histograms Part II notes and the Histograms Part II assignment. When can we use this information? To predict the likelihood of certain events occurring by applying the existing frequency of the event to future predictions. How do you know you learned it? By getting a score of 4 on the Histograms Part II assignment. Now let's take a look at our agenda for today. We will begin by going over the learning goals and success criteria. While we do that, you'll fill out your Get It Started. After that, we'll go over the Histograms Part II notes, and then I'll give you time to complete the Histogram Part II assignment on Desmos. At the end of class, we'll go back over our learning goals and success criteria while you fill out your Before You Go. Your only homework for tonight is to continue working on the Statistics Study Guide and any incomplete assignments that you may have. Let's take a look now at the Histograms Part II notes. The notes begin with the learning goals and success criteria. How do we organize data? Well, first thing you need to do is collect your data. So get the data in. So always when you collect your data, arrange it from least to greatest. So whatever values you get, make sure that you put them in order from least to greatest. This will allow you to draw conclusions more easily. Then use your data to draw your conclusions. Now let's take a look at frequency tables. Frequency tables show how many values in the data set fall within a particular interval. So intervals are small sets that are created within the data set. Okay, notice that when we create a frequency table, all the intervals must be the same size. So we can't have an interval that goes from 0 to 10 and then from 11 to 55. Okay, that doesn't work. So this is what a frequency table looks like. So we have an interval here, right? So obviously our data set goes from at least 40 to 74. So that's a pretty big span. So we break it up into smaller parts so we can see. So from 40 to 44, there were 2 data points that fell within that range. Then from 45 to 49, there were 4 that fell within that range. And so on. So we can calculate how many fell into each range. Now, what is a histogram? Histograms are bar graphs that represent the data previously presented in frequency tables. So once you've created your frequency table, you can then put it into a graph form. So just like the frequency tables, we're going to use intervals, and those are small sets of data that are created within the data set, and all of the intervals must be the same size. And this is what a histogram will look like. So let's take a look at an example of this. So we have a table here. This represents all of the shows on ABC. And first thing we're going to do is put them in order from least to greatest. And we're going to go by this demographic here. So we put these all in order from least to greatest. And this is them in order. So now we can break these up into intervals. So if we look, how many data points fall between 0.4 and 0.59? Well, here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now notice I did include the 0.59 because it was included in the interval. So there's 8 that fall into that frequency. Then we have from 0.6 to 0.79. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 that fall into that one. Then here we have from 0.8 to 0.99, we have 1, 2. Then we have from 1 to 1.19, we have 1, 2, 3. And then from 1.2 to 1.39, we have 1. So this is how you would create a frequency table. Now that we've created our frequency table, we can now create a bar graph or a histogram to represent this data. So if we do that, we would have our interval from 0.4 to 0.59, and we draw a bar that goes up to 8 because that was our frequency. Then here, from 0.6 to 0.79, we would go up to 6 and then back down. And then we'd have a frequency of 2 here, 3 here, and 1 here. So this is just a graphical way to represent our frequency table. Let's look at another example. So again, we look at the win totals here, and we're going to put them in order from least to greatest. So we have 15, 19, 26, 27, and so on. So we put these in order. And then once we have them in order, we can now create a frequency table here. So how many fall between 10 and 19? Well, there's 1, 2. From 20 to 29, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. From 30 to 39, there's just 1. And then from 40 to 49, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So this would be our frequency table for the Western Conference. Now that we've created our frequency table, now we can create a histogram to represent it. So if we do that, we have our interval from 10 to 19. And notice we go up to 2, because that was our frequency. Then from 20 to 29, we go up to 5, and then 1, and then 7. So this is what our graph would look like for our histogram. Now, types of histogram distributions. So the first one is symmetric. So notice it forms almost like a U shape. So when we create our graph, it should look kind of like this, and it may not be a perfect U. Notice that this one is definitely lower than this one, right? So it's not perfect, but it's kind of close. So it forms generally this U shape here. So that's a symmetric one. Uniformed one is where they're almost all the same length. So all the way across, they're almost all exactly the same. Now that one might be a little lower, but they're almost all the same. And then skewed is where the data is really low on one side and really high on the other. So it could go here and up, or it could go start high and then come low. Those are skewed graphs.
Let's talk now about how to sign in to Desmos to complete your work. So what we're going to do is you're going to click on the link to go to the assignment, and it should take you to a page that looks kind of like this. And right here where it says sign in with Google, we're going to click there. It's going to pop up with our email accounts. You're going to click on your school email account, and it should already have you logged in because you should have already been logged in using Google Classroom. From there, I'm just going to click start the activity, and it will take me into the assignment and allow me to begin. So that's how you will log in to Desmos using Google.
Let's take a look now at the Histograms Part II assignment. The assignment begins with the learning goals and success criteria. If we scroll down, there's a link here to take you to the Desmos activity. Go ahead and click on that link, and it should take you to a page that looks like this. We'll go ahead and click Start the Activity. The activity begins with the learning goals and success criteria. We'll go ahead and click Next. Now, for each of these, we're going to create a frequency table and then convert it to a histogram. So we fill this in. So from 1 to 3, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in that part. Then from 4 to 6, there's none. So that's 0. And notice it tells us we're getting them correct. Then here from 7 to 9, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then from 10 to 12, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 as well. So there's our frequency table. Now we're going to convert that to a histogram. So from 0 to 3, we had 5. So we're going to just draw a little bar graph here at 5. And then here was 0. This one was 5. And this one was 5. So it should look like that. We hit check it. This is what it's supposed to look like. We can see that we did it correctly. Then we'll click next. We'll do it again for this one. And we'll continue to do that for each of these. So we'll fill in the frequency table and then draw the histogram and check our histogram against the answer key. And then when you're done with that, you'll go ahead and go back to your Google form and click next. This will take you to your before you go. Go ahead and fill out your before you go and then submit your work on Google Classroom.